When you're due back in the City of London for your umpteenth microchipping. And here's yet another Guardian columnist, Gary Young, to lecture us on our democracy in crisis, claiming Americans are blaming the refugees solely for the soft invasion of Europe and the United States, an invasion engineered by the very globalists signing Young's paychecks.
His ascent is part of a rise in right-wing populism throughout the Western world. Most Western nations have their own Trump, a racist, xenophobic, Islamophobic demagogue appealing to a mix of nationalist nostalgia, patriotic myth, class grievance, and economic insecurity. Now, liberal commentators describe them as a threat to democracy, but it would be more accurate to understand them as the product of democracy already in crisis.
The overall direction of The Guardian is going to be decided by the people who run the trust. And it will also include many powerful people who are very plugged into the international finance community.
Finance community?
Yes.
Anytime Guardian columnists Stephen Thrasher, Jonathan Friedland, Gary Young, and Dame Forgan, for that matter, want to have a debate over their claims, myself and a few other InfoWarriors would be happy to educate you on the glaring reality staring you squarely in the face. John Bound for InfoWars.com.
And don't tell me that I'm a weirdo because I'm upset about this. I'm just sick of dishonorable trash.
Supreme Cobra Commander!
You're failures! You think I'd sell my family out like you, dirtbag?
Lead. It's a toxic element that can be found in pipes and water infrastructure. It also recently made national headlines in Flint, Michigan. But instead of implementing actual solutions, local and federal politicos passed the blame, and still, to this day, this neurotoxin is piped into Flint homes where it can cause profound and permanent adverse health effects to the brain and nervous system of children. This drinking water crisis is not just isolated to Flint, Michigan. Last week, KERAnews.com posted the headline, Flint-like levels of lead detected in water at 3 Texas centers for the disabled. Officials at the Brenham, Texas facility are now distributing bottled water to residents and employees. But the Texas Department of State Health Services and DADS, the Texas Department of Aging and Disability Services, want people to be screened for negative long-term effects of exposure, reported the Texas Standard. The Dallas Morning News also reports that hundreds of disabled Texans living at 3 state-supported living centers have been drinking water that contains toxic amounts of lead, rivaling those found in the water system in Flint, Michigan. The article continues. The EPA requires water systems to take steps to reduce lead levels if 10% of the samples taken exceed 15 parts per billion of lead. Each of the 3 affected Texas facilities collected samples that contained over 104 parts per billion. The highest was 266. Dennis Borrell, head of the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities, told the Texas Standard last week that these facilities have a population of children as well.
15 times the maximum EPA level of lead was found in the drinking water at Brenham State Supported Living Center, where some people have lived for decades. And apparently there are still a population of children also living there too.
As disturbing as these findings are, elevated lead levels have been found in the general population's drinking water systems as well. This means lead in the water is not only confined to disability services facilities. In January 2016, KXAN News reported a KXAN analysis of Texas Commission on Environmental Quality data found more than 15 local water suppliers with individual test results that show lead levels exceeding 15 parts per billion since 2005. Findings like these are not limited to Texas or Michigan. USA Today recently released an article entitled Beyond Flint, Excessive Lead Levels Found in Almost 2,000 Water Systems Across All 50 States. The article warns many of the highest reported lead levels were found at schools and daycares. A water sample at a Maine elementary school was 42 times higher than the EPA limit of 15 parts per billion, while a Pennsylvania preschool was 14 times higher, records show. At an elementary school in Ithaca, New York, one sample tested this year at a stunning 5,000 parts per million of lead, the EPA's threshold for hazardous waste. So while lead in the local Flint, Michigan water supply was a national story, lead in the national water supply is being reduced to nothing more than a few local stories around the country. According to Healthline.com, lead is a highly toxic metal and a very strong poison. Lead poisoning usually occurs over a period of months or years. The poisoning can cause severe mental and physical impairment. Young children are the most vulnerable to lead poisoning. Based on these results, it is safe to say that the best option for everybody is to filter all of the water you and your family will consume, whether that means drinking, cooking, or bathing. Don't depend on your local water utilities to provide you with clean and pure drinking water. Install a high-end water filtration system in your home. We have several options at InfoWarsStore.com, all of which reduce lead levels in the water you and your family consume. Lead is a serious health problem, and the public is not being warned about it. As more investigations are being conducted, the more it becomes clear that the entire nation, especially our children, are at serious risk of exposure. For InfoWars.com, I'm David Knight.
And welcome back here on InfoWars Nightly News and this Friday evening edition. Now, we've already seen civil unrest at record levels since the 60s here in the United States, mainly Bernie and Hillary supporters, attacking our own Jakari Jackson, hitting him with a rock, attacking police horses with barricades they're throwing at people. The New York Times calling, for somebody to kill Trump. Glenn Beck saying he wants to stab him. The establishment media, the leftists, are really trying to destabilize this country from my historical research. But Tim Kennedy, Green Beret, tours all over the world, famous UFC fighter, obviously, has also worked in some of the most elite units that deal with continuity of government and things like that. Now, he didn't tell me that. I know folks that are involved in that, and they say he's one of the top guys. But he says, yes, I'm an expert, and that he can speak to it. And so I want him to kind of repeat to us what he said behind the scenes about how concerned he is about what is coming, what is already here, and how bad it could get, and how we stop it and maintain our free, open republic. Because make no mistake, the Soros-backed globalists want civil disobedience, civil emergencies, riots, looting, race war to bring in even greater control later. They're pushing this to take everybody's free speech in the end. So for about 8 minutes we have left here in this final segment of InfoWars Nightly News tonight, I'm going to give the floor to Tim Kennedy.
It's a scary thing coming up. You know, what we know is coming is the perfect petri dish for bad things to happen. You don't see riots in Chicago in the middle of winter. It's too cold. People don't want to go outside, right? So for really civil unrest to happen, you have to have a bunch of little things that set up for the perfect situation. You have to have a reason, right? People are so emotionally involved in this presidential election right now, and finally, for the first time, realizing that there's something wrong with our country, that there's been like the existential perspective that the eyes are open, eyes wide open. We know that something's not right. The racial segregation that, even though we have a president saying, I'm trying to break down borders, we've never had so much hate between different racial segments, which is disheartening and concerning. But what's even more scary is we know that all of these things individually are setting up for the perfect opportunity for serious civil unrest. And now that we're moving into summer, we're moving into the presidential election, we're moving into us sending troops back into Iraq. We're looking at groups and segments of people that are supporting specific presidential nominees that are losing their guy, that are furious over the fact that, Ted Cruz, the never Trump people, or the never Hillary people, or the never Sanders people, all those people are losing their guys and they're only gonna have two options. And now we have a perfect conducive environment for some serious problems. You think riots in, Missouri was bad? Just wait until July. Just wait until August.
So if the dominoes are set up and lined up and Soros and others want to kick them over, what do we do?
Yeah, you say dominoes, I say the gasoline. The trench has been dug and it is just full of accelerants. You have every single thing for that fire to just explode. And now,
so the climate's perfect.
Yes, the climate is perfect. The temperature is perfect. Everything is right for things to go really
So if the planets are aligning, and most analysts are saying that, it's happening all over the world. We've seen some of the globalists fund the Arab Spring to put radical Muslims in and other things. How do we counter this? I mean, educating the public?
Being prepared, first of all, as an individual, you have to get ready. You have to do all the little things that, don't think that people don't care if people think that you're crazy. Don't think that you're being a fanatic, that you're being a prepper. I'm only responsible for my family. My family's going to have food. My family's going to have water. We are going to be safe. And if you think I'm crazy because I want to make sure my family's protected, fine, that's the way it is. But as an individual, you need to look and research about ways that you need to prepare for what would happen in whatever city you live in. If you're in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Trump comes to town and the whole entire city loses its mind, they're breaking horses' legs, they're throwing Molotov cocktails. That's in May, before we even have him as a nominee. What do you think is going to happen in August, when we're just a couple of months away from the election, when things are really ripe? It can get bad, and it can get bad fast. You need to do the research and figure out what you have to do to really prepare to make sure that your family's safe.
So August, September, key times.
Yeah, July, August, September, all the way up into, finally November. It's when it starts cooling off, people get a little bit, while their emotions get higher, because we're getting closer to an election, like the temperature and the environment will maybe preclude people from getting out in the streets.
Also, I see political solutions to this, letting Hillary Clinton, George Soros, Obama, and others who can't win political debates but want to try to throw the country into crisis. It's important to know that they've done this all over the world and to let them know and the public know that they're going to be held accountable. I mean, I think at a certain point when George Soros has spent, in just Ferguson alone, $35 million or $33 million trying to cause race war and attack on the police, I mean, it's clear that's sedition. And how long is this guy allowed to do this? I mean, I defend the First Amendment. I'm a constitutionalist. So are you, Tim. But at a certain point, when you've got some outsider trying to destabilize the country, that's criminal sabotage in my view. There's got to be some limit to this. I mean, if I went to Europe and if I had billions of dollars or some other country or region and tried to finance destabilization, people would come after me.
Yeah, they'd hang you. If you walk into a movie theater and you scream fire, you go to jail. You have committed a crime.
Absolutely.
And that is what they're doing on a micro scale into individual cities, into even states. And now nationally, they are inciting and encouraging racial wars and riots. It's like our worst nightmare has come to fruition. We are actually realizing that you put these people in front of a camera and give them a microphone, and they're enabling other people to hurt police officers, to go and stab and riot and everything that we're against as a nation. These people are encouraged.
And it's the very same Peter Sutherland, George Soros, and others that are in Europe that have let 5 million, quote, refugees in that you've talked about. How big are these cells? How big is the danger of what's happened in Europe? Because, here they use a bunch of leftist mobs and others brainwashed by the public school system. Over in Europe, they're bringing in 5 million jihadis, 80% are military-aged men, I'm told. From your connections and research, is that accurate?
Yeah. So if you bring in, let's say, 100 people, we know somewhere between 10 to 15 of them have been radicalized, that they're extremists. So when you're talking that you're bringing in 1 million people, how many of those now do we know are extremists?
150,000.
50,000. Now look at what one does in San Bernardino. One guy and his stupid wife go and start mowing down people. That's one dude.
They're liberal coworkers.
Think about what 100,000 of them could do in this country. What they're going to do in Europe in the next 5 years. It's coming.
So why would Merkel and Hollande and others bring them in? Use the civil emergency to ban nationalist and patriot speech. That's what they've done.
If you want to be able to shut people up, you have to use fear. So the definition of terrorism is to use fear or violence as a tool, as a weapon to achieve your objectives, right? If you're a politician, you can use that same fear to take away freedoms, to pass acts that give you access to every single iPhone out there. Be like, no, it's a terrorist. We need to be able to get inside of that guy's phone. He's really bad. Just give us access to all iPhones so that so we can protect you. That's terrorism in my definition. You're using fear as a weapon to gain more
Absolutely.
Freedom.
Wow, Tim Kennedy, that was powerful info. The whole country, the whole world's in danger of escalated civil unrest, like Google financing the Arab Spring to just bring in that tyranny, and these vultures sit on top of it. You're getting folks ready with sheepdogresponse.com and more. We're trying to get people ready by informing them. Thanks for coming in with your geopolitical and military and just common sense analysis. It's great to have you here with InfoWars visiting.
Thanks.
All right, folks, that's it for this edition of InfoWars Nightly News. Lord willing, I'll be back this Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. with a Sunday transmission, and back Monday with the 4-hour radio/TV show. You can find all the listings and more at InfoWars.com/show. Have a great weekend, and please reach out to your friends, your family, and others, and warn them about what's happening. God bless you all.